Untitled.com. It's 2 in the morning on the East Coast of the United States. I have no idea what time it is down and under, but it is time for Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mickey. So I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave
and Mickey
on WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on, you guessed it, www.revolution.radio, where it's more than just radio. So jump in to the chat room if you can. This is show number 436.
630 and 400. That's
hey,
crazy.
I like that.
Oh, no.
Just remember that Revolution Radio is on air, online, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop digital radio. Smack, he gets it out of the park. If you missed Solaris' show, it was awesome yet again. As always again and again and again. Fantastic stuff. I just noticed that Solaris had new publication come out. My
Alien
goodness.
Agenda.
Yeah.
Alien Agenda. Got to read it. Got to get it.
Prolific.
It's on Amazon, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And tonight's show, she had the Witching Hour with Nish in Montana. And always great stuff that they talk about. But you know what, Mickey? We've got some great news. Fantastic news.
The best.
Yeah, well, yeah, completely.
Better than that, even.
Yeah, and you're saying that on the blind.
On. Hey.
It's fantastic. It really is great news.
Best.
And and that is that the archives for the station until, I think, September 1st. I think the day before September 1st, they're currently free.
They're free.
They're free.
How crazy is that?
I know. Jump in, register, get yourself in there. It's totally free. You can download all of the content there if you wish.
Free.
Free.
Gratis. For nothing.
Nada.
The price is right. They get you hooked and then they check it out, man. That's what happens.
Hey, don't let the cat out of the bag.
Oh, no. Yeah. Are you going to cook those?
Depends on what country I'm in. All right, so you can access the archives and gain something that you would not normally have gained, and that is, you can listen to all of the host shows on Revolution Radio, and they're looking to put up, if they've not already done it, that is historical shows too, like going back as far as they've got records for. So that's really good. And I know they're using some cloud services now, Mickey. And I was just talking to Tones, and he's been working really hard and lifting this show, lifting this station up. And so really happy with the work that's getting done, and all to those who are on the board of Revolution Radio, thank you very much for maintaining the platform and making it what it is. I know it's not been tremendously easy. We've had the anniversary of Hawk passing recently, and
and his birthday,
that's his birthday. Yeah. So it's tough. I have to say it's tough. But look, while we're here where we are, let's take a step back and acknowledge the traditional custodians of lands where you live, because where I live, it's the Darkinjung, and Meki, where you live,
the Rock people.
Yes, and we pay our respects, understanding to the elders, past, present, and emerging, knowing that they did, I'm going to be honest with you, a much better job at looking after the earth than we're doing. We're basically the Vikings of civilization, raping and pillaging the earth and selling it for whatever it's worth. Who cares? I don't care. Let's go find, here's a great segue, let's go find another planet, Mickey, another one.
Yes! Earth 2.0. Let's see how long it'll take us to screw that one up. Hey, I'm taking bets. Minutes.
I say immediately. So what was the first thing we did? The first thing we did was look out into the universe and go, how many other Earths are there? Like, this one's not so good anymore. Like when people, a car analogy, when you run your car into the ground and you step out of that into another one and you run it into the ground as well, without really knowing, all the cars I've had, man, they all fail, right?
Yeah.
Because you never did the right thing with it or buy it.
What do you mean? I had a friend never opened the bonnet of his car ever, right? and then he finally did. Oh, look at all that stuff in there.
There's stuff in there.
The engine. Yeah, that's what makes the car go, whoa, man.
Is that what happens?
It's like, hey, what do you say to that? It's like the guy that was, I don't know if you saw the meme, it was a little video of a guy with a pail. And he's in a fence,
yes.
and there's like water up to his knee, and the fence has got massive gaps. It's one of those fences with just gaps, right? And he's taking the water in a pail and throwing it across the fence. But there is no separation between the outside and the inside.
It's just a gate. It's a wrought iron gate with holes through it, right?
It is. Some people are too stupid to live. Sorry. It's not good.
See, Mickey, I think when I see that, right, I'm perplexed that there isn't an exam. There should be an examination in which to pass allows you to breed.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like the New World Order stuff, right? Right? But honestly, wow.
I hear you.
I think that's the honesty alarm just went off then.
Yeah, but look, in German there's a beautiful phrase, not a phrase, it's a term. Lebensberechtigungsschein. It's one word. Lebensberechtigungsschein. I know Germans love compound words, dude. That they are nothing like the Welsh, though. I gotta say. And Hungarians are the masters.
Oh,
but what it means
the
is
longest town name in the world.
That was Welsh, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't say that too often. No, I don't live there. No, I'm living in Piptown. Piptown is where I'm from. And what it means, Lebensberechtigungsschein, means a certificate that entitles you to live. You should be giving those out at a certain age. You have to sit an exam, the common sense exam, And well, if you do this, can you do that also? Well, yes, I can. Who will you vote for in the next presidential election? That's question number one right there. Oh, dude.
Well, in Australia, they all vote, Mackie, but over in America, you have a choice, and so not all of them, luckily, will vote. Which, I mean, it's sort of a segue right there, right?
It is.
We're living in just crazy times. I want to go. I want to go into space here immediately with a story that is this week anyway, right? And that's that there are count them, 3 different places going in to Mars. They're sending, rockets up. They're going to land stuff on Mars. And how science am I right now? Stuff, rockets, That's it. Space,
You're sciencing all day long.
I do science.
You're a sciencer.
Yeah. So there's 3 space missions that are heading to Mars, and one each from NASA, China, and the United Arab Emirates.
No, that one I found interesting. I mean,
surprise, right?
Yeah, NASA scientists helped them, etc., but still, I mean, it launched. It's off. It'll get there soon enough.
So most of them, because we're at the closest point right now, so we're throwing the ball off the planet to the narrowest journey that it takes to get there, and it'll be February 2021. So if we launched it another 6 months, it would take, like 18 months to get there.
I've actually written an article, and I'm still trying to get it published. It's on the moon and imminent disclosure, etc. And this is actually a really great little topic here, the moon, and the missions that we are now, after 51 years, we are resuming crewed missions into space, because in the last 51 years, not a single crewed mission has gone into space. Oh, that's not true. We've been flying,
Low Earth orbit isn't space, right?
Bingo. Low Earth orbit is not in space at all, right? So we haven't had a single person in space in 51 years. So my question is, and I'm still looking for someone to publish my article. Anyone that's listening from Nexus, even New Dawn, I don't care. I'm happy to publish it for free. But anyway, there we go. 51 years though, Dave. Was there a moratorium when we went there in 69 or earlier or after or whatever the case may have been? Probably not 69. We probably landed there after. 69 mission was a bit of a thing. But what happened in the intervening years? 51 years. Every field of endeavor, every scientific achievement that we could have made in other areas, we have, except for outer space and anti-gravity. So
that's a contentious issue with me right now.
Oopsie, right? But that's the thing. I'm really curious. I mean, what happened? Did 50 years have to pass? What do people agree on?
Yeah, it's almost like there was a rule or a law or something, maybe an agreement with aliens or whatever, right?
Someone.
Or maybe they said, "Hey, stop coming up here in this flimsy old tin can. Work it out." Because it's dangerous, you'll all die or something. I don't know, but I couldn't imagine it. Looked like compared to what SpaceX looks like. I'm surprised we even got into low Earth orbit in the stuff that we'd been sending up in the past. Like it's like a handmade glider, or no, even worse, an ultralight. Compared to the Ferrari or a Lamborghini. I don't know. They're a terrible comparison. All I'm saying, when I look back, it looks like it's steampunk compared to the SpaceX.
I love
even
steampunk.
The suits look awesome. I love steampunk as
well.
Steampunk as well. I love steampunk. It's one of my favorite things. That kind of the 5-piece suit with monocles and helmets and goggles and brass medical looking equipment, but it's sort of the highest tech you can possibly get. I love that. But
it's clever. No, it's good. Look, I do too. Steampunk is the thing. And if I could dress in that fashion every day, I would, if it were socially acceptable.
It is on the coast. Mecca is one of the largest steampunk groups in New South Wales. Pretty cool.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they're usually at all of the events that are up here. It's like a little tiny country town. It's so cute. But anyway, look. Having said that, yes, the UAE was a bit of left field for me. I think India is going to have another shot at the moon sometime.
Good for India.
Yeah, good for them. Yeah, China also launched to go to Mars, and I wonder if they're going to have a little flag and claim some territory.
You can't claim outer space. There's an international, believe it or not, there's an international treaty that exists similar to the Antarctic. We know how that works.
That worked real well too.
You can't claim out any part of outer space for a nation state, they say, but might is right, Dave.
Well, that's sort of a segue into where my next story is.
For you.
You are the king of segues today.
Or the emperor.
Right. All right. Yeah, there you go. Very nicely put. And that is that what was heard and agreed to in The Hague, as far as the South China Sea is concerned, has. I think that the order was ignored by China, and now the US and Australia, there's Japan, UK, and I think it's Malaysia, Thailand. No, not just Thailand, the other one. They've all decided, like the Spratly Islands crew, everyone is now saying, you know what, we're going to uphold the Hague's agreement, and that was like international law meaning the whole of the planet, except for the people who didn't like the outcome, are now in favor of it. So now they're going to be actively pestering China until something happens. I think that's the only way I could honestly say it, Mackie, without using the wrong terminology.
They closed the these are not embassies, like these are actually consulates. There's only one embassy each nation has in the other nation's capital city, and everything else is a consulate or a mission or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But they closed the ones in Houston, that's a consulate.
Yep.
And in retaliation, the Chinese asked the Americans to close the Chengdu mission.
For exactly the same reasons.
But it's tit for tat because they're not the same size. that's the funny thing. But the reason the Americans asked them to close the Houston consulate was because that was apparently the one that was engaged in most of the economic espionage that is going on at the moment, or allegedly so.
And they claimed hacking as well.
Sure.
And influence.
Like that matters.
It doesn't matter where you are on the planet. That's right.
Right. No,
if you want to hack, you can hack from your phone.
But
right?
Is it war footing? I don't know. It's tit for tat, but really, it's like when you remember it used to be in the schoolyard, and then someone comes to you and they push you and you push back. You cannot not push each other because you lose face, but you also don't want to fight, get dirty, maybe bloody and all this. That's no good. So you keep pushing each other, right, until the bell rings. Say, oh, you're lucky. I got to go back inside. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, completely. But this is funny because I typed in war footing because I'd come up with the term in a post that I'd made in social media, and I didn't make the term. Well, I utilized, thank you very much. I utilized the term war footing. Thank you.
I meant it blue. That's me. Blue. Oh, Mackie.
Mackie, when I'm not talking to you and I'm talking to my family does exactly the same thing. Oh, you didn't make the phrase. No, I didn't make the phrase. I utilized it. Yeah, okay. Well, I let you off on that one. And my teenage daughter is she's quite the
critic.
Grammar critic. That's what I'll say. So anyway, I found a story here. This is war footing. Trump takes on Putin, China in international power battle. But what I've actually come to realize here is I think it's bigger than this, and it's so much bigger than this point that I'm gonna make. Right? That it surprised me when I wrote it out, when it came out of me that way. And I said that the US declares China's expansion into the South China Sea is unlawful. Australia also publicly takes the same stance. That was what yesterday's news was. My question is, does anyone think about the USA? Well, I think that the USA would want to lose their top global power position to communism. No, I say no. I say no. I'm calling it out, right? There's no way. It doesn't matter who that was, whether it's Russia or the USSR in the olden days. They'll fight, and basically, I think this fight will be at any cost and occur before November this year. And Mackie, I think we both agree around that date, and you called this out last year when I mentioned it earlier. I thought it would be much sooner in the year, but then the virus came around, I think, and delayed everything. I
always thought anything that needs to happen around the time of the election. Having said that, though, there's no more communism in the world. There's not a single communist nation on the planet. Oh, Maggie, that's not true. I don't care what you call yourself. You can call yourself a banana.
That's totalitarian, isn't it, China?
There you go.
Rather.
That's it. It is
with their own
autocracy.
Yeah, with their own version of what it used to look like in a transition into whatever it is.
Well,
does it really have a name?
Well, no, not really. I guess it'd be an oligarchy, if you want to put a term on it, but an autocratic oligarchy, where free enterprise is allowed. A lot of billionaires. They're not billionaires in communism. Let's be very clear. Right? There aren't any. Communism is a very specific philosophy and a very specific political structure. China is nowhere near. The only feature that it has still got is the central party system. That's still very much in the vein of a communist
entirely.
Yeah, Yeah, but that's. I mean, there's no communism in China. There's no communism anywhere else in the world either, for that matter. There's socialism, lots of it.
Yeah.
But certainly not in those countries.
Yeah. So. Oh, okay. So I think that all of the allied countries will turn their back on China for trade. And they're going to expect that this is going to result in China's demise. I think that won't be the case, though, and I question that can any of us actually afford to do that?
Not right now.
No,
we will have to. We will have to. So manufacturing. I saw an interesting analysis on Australian manufacturing, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But I mean the Australian situation. But in Australia, we are probably one of the worst countries in the first world, I guess. That from a manufacturing point of view, we got nothing anymore. Gone. This whole crisis around China, etc., and COVID has told a lot of countries, well, you can't really put all of your eggs in one basket. That is no longer inside your country. You need to be able to manufacture all the essentials at home. You have to make sure that your economy can keep going when the supply chain breaks, which it has in many ways. And that will, in the long term, will hurt China a lot. In the short term, it's still what it is. The production facilities are there. It'll take time to ramp up. You can't hurt China in the short term. Medium to long term,
they're playing the long game anyway.
Of course they are. Of course they are. 100%.
And they have been for decades. We didn't see. I think we were blind to the profit that we were making, blinded by the profit we were making, in order to, turn our back on the what they're using today in the media, Mackie, is the human rights atrocities and the living conditions and what China used to be, right?
To be clear, Apple knew all along how they had suicide nets around the buildings where they made these things. Because of the working conditions. Suicide nets.
I don't want to make these no more. And they jump. And then the net catches you. Get back to work.
Yes. Take his thumbs. Put them on the button. Put them on the button.
So that's pretty bad. My actual question, because I'd love for you to answer this one, Mackie, because the audience can't, but I know they're doing it in their own head, and that is, would America want to lose their top dog role to China?
The answer is, of course, no.
Yeah.
But nothing ever lasts forever, and we've seen in the recent history just what happens. I mean, if you look at the world prior to World War One. Not World War II, but World War One. It was a very different kind of power structure. America was nowhere as a power. It just didn't exist as a power, right? China, the great powers, believe it or not, there were Great Britain, France, and the emerging power at the time was Germany.
Yes.
And that's eventually led, what's led to World War One. It was the struggle between these great powers. The declining ones and the emerging ones, and we're seeing something similar again. And again, America's stars on the vein has been for probably for the last 40 or 50 years. Ever since America turned itself into, its economy really, into industrial, military focused economy, it has been on the decline because you can't sustain it. The only way you can sustain an economy like this is through war. Right, and that's why America has been at war, right? Well, it is true. It's a fact, right?
Yeah, that's right. As long as every problem's the nail and you've got the hammer, it doesn't matter, right?
No, if you're a hammer, every problem is a nail.
If you're the hammer, every problem's a nail. I can just hit it. Yeah,
that's it.
I know. Done. So, coming from the military-industrial complex, oriented nation, that's actually what's going on. However, China has its own issues at the moment, and they're mighty old issues. So right now, poor China is, and I say poor China, I don't mean that because they don't have money to rub together. A lot of I saw a lot of their very high placed ministers were hiding. One guy had 500 million US dollars in his house. Another one had billions of money that they couldn't declare anywhere because they'd been receiving it in bribes, and they've now been taken down because they're not.
Brown paper bag.
What's wrong with those? Put them in the freezer. Look like lunches. But China right now is suffering. I think this is the 60+ days now of continuous, or pretty much therefore continuous rain. It is the monsoon season, and yeah, they do flood, but they've hit the lifelong goals, the highest record flood depths, and
so Dave, you're right. This monsoon season, but only in the southern parts of China. The northern parts of China, they're experiencing the summer melt.
Yeah,
so they've got the monsoon season, summer melt,
mm-hmm.
and we've already seen they've released enormous amounts of water out of the Three Gorges.
Yeah. So there's 3 other dikes that have been deliberatory. Oh, I can't even say.
Deliberately.
That'll do. They intentionally broke the dikes or the levees to release water to try to save Wuhan. And they've got a large wall that surrounds on either sides the river in Wuhan. And it's within that confined space in a controlled manner that the water is going down that they've created. They're trying to save the rest of Wuhan, and I found out there's some good reasons for that, because they've got wartime vehicle manufacturing, underground bases, which have access within Wuhan. And there's a lot of, it's not called CCP, the PLA manufacturing facilities as well. So they're all within Wuhan, and they're sacrificing other towns to save Wuhan right now. But there's another blob, a big bulge of water coming from upstream, where the Three Gorges Dam is going to, take the brunt of that, hopefully. And in flood control, the Three Gorges Dam plus its hydro is only at the top third of the world's, the third longest river. And so downstream, there's 3 other rivers. There's 2 other rivers that are contributing to downstream as well, the flooding. And they're also at their, record peaks. So look, it's really hard. Their food basin, their food bowl is in all of those low-lying lands. And they're seeing a whole annualized crop destruction right now, and they're not going to be able to. They're gonna have some grief, right? So they're gonna have their hand out for other nations to supply food, no doubt.
Yeah.
They've had the swine flu, and the pigs they've been slaughtering by the hundreds of thousands until the floods came. Now they're not so much killing those. The streets of the old Wuhan are getting cleansed so that effectively the WHO investigation will come up with naught. There won't be anything that they could even find, even if they wanted to. There won't be anything there. So I think it's pretty tough. And the so far, all estimates are that there's going to be a massive famine in China. Oh, well, they're talking about that. Oh, it's not me, Maggie. This is the Chinese media.
No, but it's
the Chinese media themselves are saying there's always a positive message. It's either towards the government or it's towards the Three Gorges Dam, which is their pride and joy, which is fine. That's good. I like it. But, there's whole valleys that are flooded and there's only rooftops, and they're saying, isn't it lovely that you can see the mountains with the lake?
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of messaging, and I was like, "Wow, right, okay, I'm okay with that. That's fine. If you want to promote that kind of thing, that's your bag, not mine." So it's a completely different picture, Mickey. I think I'm seeing. Their experts have talked about the dam and how it possibly could fail. They've agreed now, and they've admitted that it's moved, that it is no longer a dead straight line, like a laser straight. It's now moved, and they're really letting water out of that, so to prevent further mishap. But should it go 400 million downstream, have the potential of being displaced. So it's pretty tough. I've got to think from a humanity point of view, Mackie, that's really, really bad.
Oh, look, absolutely. It's going to be catastrophic, and it'll play into the overall shambles that's 2020. And can you project a picture of strength when 400 million people are drowning or being displaced? That's a tough one, right? and then you got coronavirus to contend with. I mean, it's all. I mean, this is the year that's going to completely reshape the global picture completely. And you're right. I mean, look, we'll see what happens. I mean, I feel sorry for the people because it's never the people that are the problem.
No, it's always the governments.
Always the government.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But let's talk about. Go on.
But you get cholera outbreaks and dysentery when you have flooding because everything's mixed together and there's no clean water. So not only is there a food crisis looming, but there's also the current crisis of not having fresh water, and all your food sources are gone at the moment anyway. So yeah, it could be disease-ridden cesspool, to be honest. And that's just not going to be a great experience, right? How do you recover from that plus the virus? Like if right now in Australia we had exactly the same conditions where we had massive flooding and people displaced, our economy would be, dead.
Well, we would have. So yeah, the equivalent would be if both Melbourne and Sydney were displaced.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got about the equivalent percentage of population compared to China.
So because right now it's about 100 million.
Yeah.
And we don't.
So imagine that.
Yeah, we don't
imagine
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no. But, yeah. Imagine Sydney and Melbourne. Everybody in here displaced.
Yeah.
But what do you think would happen to the Australian economy?
Yeah. Bye.
Whoa, it's spinning the other way. Whoa. It's because we're in Australia.
Reference, by the way. Yeah.
Well, the Euler's effect.
But
So
the segue there about the economy going down the toilet.
It's
circling the drain anyway, right?
The other way, right?
And that is, I was listening to a news story today, and I found a related story, and that was to do with Australia's economy is on life support right now. That's currently where we're at. So I started I watched the Josh Frydenberg. He's our treasurer, political party treasurer, and he's working all the math, trying to make this work. And I wrote this down. I said, our government has declared that unemployment will peak at 9%. And that is as long as you are receiving a payment, you aren't unemployed. And they're talking about this is costing 11 billion per month. But then he says there's 3 million people that are receiving payments due to lockdown and businesses being shut down. And that's more than the 9%. Yeah. So he started to contradict himself, which is really funny. He said that the deficit will peak at 85.5 billion for just the coronavirus payments system. But then that totals about 308 billion as our total deficit, which it was never anywhere near that going into this year. But then when you try to work it out, it's going to take 54 years just to pay back the 85 billion in debt. Like we're talking crazy numbers. I mean, this isn't US numbers. They've got a T, what's the one after trillion?
Quintillion.
Yeah, quintillion.
Quadrillion.
Right. So the quadrillion is probably where the US is going to be as well. So the government estimates effective unemployment is currently at 11.3%, despite him saying it was only 9% like half a sentence ago. But he said effective unemployment is 11.3%, due to fall to 10% by December. And he was pressed pretty hard on how come there's a difference. He goes, it just depends on how you look at the numbers.
That's true.
It's so true. True. Yeah. So
I'm the most handsome man in the world. Look at the numbers. Me. Who'd you ask? Me?
I looked at the numbers.
There you go.
That's right. We polled a recent studio audience of 1.
What do you think? Yes, you are.
It's up there, Steve. I've been watching a lot of Family Feud, and I love the Family Feud. I love it. It's up there, Steve. No, it ain't. It's up there. It's a good answer. No, it isn't. All right. So, look, just knowing how poor and just, look, the description itself is Australia's economy is on life support right now. The only thing keeping the whole thing together, and fingers crossed it doesn't get worse, and that lockdowns don't continue, and that we can get back into our economy again, is starting to look sort of more unlikely as we keep going, because there's so many vectors, Mekki, isn't there? I've got a friend of mine who's a Qantas pilot, and he said the last time he flew was in March, and he doesn't look like he's going to return back to be a pilot ever again. By the time the planes are more likely to fly, he's an international Qantas pilot. He's just never been scheduled again. Even the Qantas are flying occasional flights, but he's not on a schedule any time between here and like 2021. By the end of 2021, he's not on a roster. So he's been put on permanent hold, and it doesn't look likely that they're going to recover very well at all. And I saw that the finance, sites all this week are all talking about, airlines, which one's the next to go. Because, it makes sense, right? There's no one flying. A lot of planes are leased. How can you have the burden of the cost and operate?
Of course you can't.
You can't. Yeah, at some point, you've got to fold, right? You can't keep taking loans to pay for the debt of the planes, the leasing. Forget it. It is some country somewhere is going to just have a whole pile of planes.
Well, in the is it Arizona? There's this massive desert plane graveyard. You probably have seen it in the movies and such. It's a thing. So wherever you've got a huge piece of flat land. Yep. Ideally, desert conditions. Yep. That's where they park those things.
Yep. And Qantas flew its plane that it had done a 48-year stint.
747, yeah.
Yeah, and I've actually flown on it, and I flew on one of those first flights that it made. I'm 53. It's 48. Yeah, I was 5. And my mum was a Qantas travel writer, and she was being flown on the 747 to all of the new destinations because they just lengthened the airports, their runways for it. And it was a bit sad. But when it left Australia, it left and drew the Qantas logo, the tail.
How cool was that?
Yeah.
How cool was that?
And I tracked it on...
So, what Dave means, the flight path was along the line of the Qantas logo, the kangaroo. Yep. So if you track the flight path and drew a solid line through it, it would have that shape. It's just brilliant.
It did. And on Flight Radar 24, I did post that. I posted the screenshot. And I had a lot of naysayers saying that would never have happened. And then one of my friends did better than that, and he actually provided the telemetry from the plane in waypoint changes. Take that. Good on you.
Naysayers.
Boom.
I'm trying to bunkers.
Mic drop, right?
That's it, buddy.
I'm here all week.
But only on Sundays.
But look, it started getting me thinking, like with the economy going so globally so poorly, and in some countries clearly it's better than others, and some have had no active cases for a while. But in our ally countries, Mekki, in the countries that we are enemies with, I suspect it's quite a number of countries. We used to be open travel everywhere, right? But here we go. With so many other countries being ravaged by the virus, maybe Australia's borders, this is a conversation I have with one of my friends, maybe the borders will be closed for much longer, much longer, if we continue to work towards eliminating the virus. So Australia's strategy is to eliminate it entirely.
No, it's not.
I know right now they're saying it isn't, but they're attempting to eliminate the spread and the community spread and come back down to zero community spread. That's what they're trying. Effectively, that's what they're trying to do.
But if we wanted elimination, we would have to do what New Zealand did. We have to shut down completely everything for a month or two, and they're just not willing to do that. Otherwise, the economy would suffer.
They're not.
Well, that's the problem. Right?
That's right.
That's the problem.
So by playing what they're calling now whack-a-mole, which is as soon as something presents it, you track it and you isolate everybody, trying to keep some semblance of order and, normality, just some, you end up inadvertently spreading it more than you could possibly imagine, right? But my point here is that maybe this is a failing strategy. Maybe we shouldn't do this at all, because I think this will mean that we'll need to maintain our isolation from other infected countries as long as there is still a virus out there in those countries. Right?
But you're assuming, go on.
No. So my assumption is all about eliminating the virus. Okay, but maybe we shouldn't do that at all. Maybe we should let the virus run rampant. Who cares? Maybe we should keep or have kept our borders open and not gone into full lockdown. It isn't such a flippant remark, though, and I open the floor for debate on this, because if we clean our country of the virus, will it allow us to return to operation with fewer economic woes? It's a big question.
Well, no, it's actually pretty straightforward, to be honest with you. It depends on what we're willing to pay for that. And I'll be very brief with this, because there's one item I have to cover before we go into the break. If we let it run, which other countries have, our death toll will be much higher. But it's not the death toll I'm too worried about. I mean, in fact, the death toll, if it is concentrated on the elderly, actually helps the economy. And I know this sounds callous, but it's a thing. Whereas the problem here is the long-term effects of this virus. And we still don't know what that is, and we don't know how long it takes to recover. We don't even know if you can recover from it. And we don't know if you will ever develop an immunity to it. So if we're all happy to be sick all the time forever, going forward, then let's open up everything. But it might mean that we're sick forever, and that all people that have an underlying health condition, right, whatever it might be, anything respiratory, anything maybe even from a coronary effect, anything blood related even, they will simply die most likely. And just because you're on a respirator doesn't mean you will come off it, right?
No, that's right.
So yes, we may have enough respirators now, that's good. That's not a guarantee. There's no cure. So number one, there's no cure for this thing. And a vaccine is not a cure. Okay, a vaccine is a preventative. So if it ever happens, if we ever get the vaccine, great. Will it work? Don't know. The flu changes every season. That's where you get a jab every season, right? Or at least that's the story. And with this COVID, again, a coronavirus,
it's on the third version of it now.
Well, yeah, and it belongs to the same family as all the other flu viruses. Okay, so it's not there is no strategy that has guaranteed success. So herd immunity is a nice idea if you develop immunity. We don't know if you develop immunity yet. You can catch it again and again and again. Who knows, right?
Yes, the argument there is all the frontline staff who have been in contact with it and had the virus should then be just fine, like chickenpox, right?
Yeah, but they're not.
You've got it, but they're not.
And the problem here also is, if we do let it run rampant, the first people, or the group that will be disproportionately affected by this will be the frontline health workers.
Yeah,
so
if they're willing, we can afford to lose.
That's it. If we're willing to lose thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of trained doctors, nurses, etc., right, which are necessary to help us with all the other stuff we're going through, like all the other diseases and the ailments we have apart from COVID, then okay. So what I predict then, if we do let it happen, right, we lose the entire health establishment as a thing, that's gone, right, and we lose any capacity to be treated for anything at this point, and the population reduction would be phenomenal. Right, which is exactly what's
like the Dickens.
Oh, like the Dickens, which is, in my opinion, estimation, something that has been on the cards for some time now, and it terrifies me, Dave, that we called this. We called it almost 10 years ago when the show first started, and I said, remember, we should go back to the show and have a look at it. But remember, we discussed this, and I said, this is not going to be chemical. It's not going to be nuclear. It's going to be biological. This is bang for buck, right? It's cheapest. And here we are, and it really is. I'm terrified of being right in this, and Dave, I know you are. When we look at our hypothesis and all the things that are needed for it to move into a theory, I think we are now beyond the theory for the hypothesis. Sorry, beyond the hypothesis for the hypothesis. I think it's now actually a theory, and soon enough we'll see if it's a fact. But ultimately, yes. Why don't we open the economy? Again, the thing is, this is the argument of the rich people. The rich people say, yeah, let's open it up because they're going to be okay for the most part. They can isolate in comfort on a ranch, in some mountain retreat, in a fortress, in a compound, whatever it might be, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, maybe even on the moon, for all I know. Whereas the other, us, the great unwashed.
Mars.
Mars, yeah, for sure, mate. For sure. We would be the ones, the useless eaters, as they call us. We would be the ones suffering through this here. The only reason we want to stop the lockdown is for the economy. That's it. That is it. That's the only reason. There's no other reason to stop the lockdown. If you looked at it from a health perspective, you keep lockdown until the thing is gone, right? Mm-hmm. Like New Zealand, until it's gone. But we didn't do that because of the economy. And people that are in power listen to people that have the economic power, that have the money, etc., etc.
They're holding the reins. Yeah,
absolutely. Let me quickly bring up another topic which I found interesting this week, and I'll be very swift on this one. I don't know has anybody heard of the Diary of Merer? It's a diary that was discovered in 2013. An Egyptian, I guess, bureaucrat, you can call it. He was, and it was written about 4,500 years ago, and in it. Right, so it was discovered by archaeologist Pierre Tallet of the Sorbonne in Paris, and in it, they found that this diary of Merer, who was a middle-ranking official with the title inspector, is thought to date to the 26th year of the reign of the pharaoh Khufu. Now, who cares, right? So far, but it describes several months of work with the transportation of limestone from Tura to Giza. So when I first saw the article, I saw the mystery of the pyramid building has finally been solved. I go, oh, I'm interested. So I did the digging. Now, the diary does not specify whether stones were to be used or for what purpose. But given the diary date, they assume it was for the probably for the facing stones of Khufu's pyramid. That's what they think, right? It was for the cladding, right, of the Great Pyramid. And fair enough, it's possible. And this is what they found. About every 10 days, 2 or 3 round trips were done, right? Shipping perhaps 30 blocks of 2 to 3 tons each. And that amounted to about 200 blocks per month. So that's how much they shipped. And this guy had 40 boatmen working under him. So a crew of 40 boatmen transported 200 blocks every month, right? And now that has now solved the great mystery of how the pyramid was built. Okay. I've done the math on this, Dave, like I like to do.
How long would they have had to be doing this for?
Okay, so just for the Great Pyramid, which has got 2.3 million blocks, 2.3 million blocks, right? There's also the Pyramid of Khafre and the Pyramid of Menkaure. Okay, now oddly enough, I couldn't find anywhere how many blocks are meant to be in those pyramids. But looking at the size of it, I estimated 2 million and 1 million. So 2 million for Khafre and 1 million for Menkaure. It could be more a little bit, could be less a little bit. But if we know it's 2.3 million, we think about for Khufu. So this one crew, if it was just the one crew transporting, as they did, 200 blocks a month, it would have taken them 958 years. It would have taken them a further 833 years for Khafre and an additional 416 years. So all up, it would have taken them about 2,500 years to transport the stones in this fashion, if there were only one crew.
And no holidays.
If you had 1,000 crews,
yes,
right? 1,000 ships, all of a sudden becomes more feasible. But 1,000 ships, what does that mean? What it means is 40,000 crew, okay? And because there are 3 pyramids, it's actually 120,000 crew, right?
Yeah.
And then they could have done it in about a year, all right?
They'd all be hungry, though, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's 120,000 people that are just shipping stone. First of all, you have to produce that much stone, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to have 1,000 ships that are dedicated to this alone, right? If there were 500 ships, which is now 60,000 crew members, right? It would have taken them about 2 years. But again, it is 20,000 crew that you would have to feed. And you would have to have 500 ships.
That's just the boat crew, let alone the stonemasons.
Oh, yeah, just the boat crew.
Or anyone placing stones.
Yeah.
No architects as management.
Yeah, and you have to load it. It would have been probably in fact, I don't think we've got a port this busy anywhere today in the world.
No.
But my point is that we need to do the math, right?
I wonder if the boats could fit in the waterway.
Well, who knows? but the point, exactly, I mean, from a physical, yeah, exactly. Is there enough space for all the boats to fit? So, no, but see, so people, have these. In fact, the Egyptian archaeologist, my favorite person in the world, Zahi Hawass, describes the Diary of Merer as the greatest discovery in Egypt in the 21st century. I don't think so at all. I think it's good insight as to what happened, but to say that this explains how the pyramids were built is such a leap of faith that, as the armchair debunker that I am, I must say nay, because I've done the math. It doesn't add up. Okay, if you had 40,000 people on 1,000 ships doing it for one pyramid, great. What you really need is 120,000 people on 3,000 ships doing it. That's what you really needed. You understand? Because they have 3 pyramids, and they're all, Khufu and Khafre are about the same size, but Menkaure, probably half the size. So altogether, you had to have roughly 5.3 million blocks of stone that you had to transport. And these were, by the way, stones in the vicinity of 2 to 3 tons, I think. Yeah, 2 to 3 tons each. So it doesn't even account for the large stones that were used in the construction, like the 50 and the 100 tonners. Mm-hmm. So to call this out and saying, oh, no, we solved the mystery now. We know exactly what happened now. Yeah, it's been transported. Look, they transported stone. Not saying where it was going or what it was used for, but they transported stone over the period of 3 months. They have the diaries, right? And I hate it when these statements are made, because you have to live in the real world, Dave. You have to look at how it is possible. You have to look at the logistics, the feasibility. You can't just make these statements. But these are clearly lettered academics, right? They have done the peer review, and they've done this and that. I'm disappointed, to say the least, with statements like that, because we belittle the effort and the mystery that surrounds the building of these massive structures. Not to mention the 28,000-year-old Indonesian pyramid, which we will mention at some other point in the future. It's just craziness. It is really nuts. And anybody out there that read the article and now you know the background. This is actually what we have. This is the math behind it. I don't know if there were 3,000 ships and 120,000 crew, or even, let's say, 250 ships and 30,000 crew that would have been available at the time. 30,000 people feeding them. They have families, right? Let's say 4 or 5 in each family, right? All of a sudden, you've got 200,000 people there. That's just a boat crew. Just a boat crew. Then you have to have the people that bake the bread, and then eat the meat, brew the beer.
Offloading the stones from the boats is still a whole thing. Stevedores, Mackie.
Yeah, bingo. And somebody had to build the ships. Can you imagine how much wood it would take to build that many ships? Right, and then there would be accidents as well. Right, this entire boat. There should have been massive. There should be blocks on the bottom of the Nile. Like there should be hundreds of blocks of
where
rock,
the ships failed. That's right.
Yeah, but the ships failed. But again, maybe they are. I haven't seen it. I just don't like for people to make flippant statements like this, because now that the armchair debunker will say to you and me, Dave,
there you go.
Well, it's been solved. It's done. We know how it was done. Look at the Diary of Merer. There it is. No, do the math and then talk to me. Disappointing to say the least. But I tell you what, though, this year 2020, if we get through it, I do hope that we still have a show here with
if we
the audience.
Through it. I know, right? We'll feel like Krusty, Mickey, 72 hours on air continuously from that, the emergency broadcast facility in the desert. No one else to hear us. I know, but we're 24-hour station. So I want there to be disclosure. I read something this week, real quick, that the US is declaring that they've got material from and reverse engineered stuff. Hasn't hit mainstream. It's still sort of in the background, but hoping that since the Tic Tac UFO has already circulated, maybe the next step is to say, hey, yeah, we've found one of these crash before, and we didn't understand what it was we were picking up off the ground. We couldn't identify some materials. That's currently the fringe news. So I look forward to hearing something positive from that. That'd be really nice. There's the music.
Don't go anywhere, and donate if you can. This is Listener Funded Radio.
Radio.
get back to your host.
Hello and welcome back to Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out, broadcasting on Revolution.radio from Australia, and we are talking about ancient tech. This is show number 58 on it, I'm sure. I don't know, actually. But we are here, and we hope that you have the time to listen to us. It's going to be fascinating, and we discussed China last week, and we're going to continue with China this week. We talked about essentially the Yellow Emperor, right? And the mystery surrounding the Yellow Emperor, the stories behind it. Fascinating stuff, I have to say. And something that we come across as we research this for each show, right? I mean, this is knowledge that is, some of it is new to us. We're learning all the time. But let's get right into it. And this time we're talking about, again, with relation to the Yellow Emperor, we're talking about Regulus, which is Alpha Leo, the star in the constellation of Leo, of course. And the question that is posed here, where did Huang Ti, the Yellow Emperor, fly to? Right. Last week we spoke about his flying around, the essence of thunder, etc., etc. I don't know if you listened to us. If you haven't, you can always catch us on the archives or on our YouTube channel. And look through a telescope on a bright starry night. Leo can be found in the northern hemisphere in the spring and southern hemisphere in autumn. Right ascension 11 hours, declination 15 degrees. Visible between latitudes 90 and minus 65 degrees. Best seen in April at around 9 p.m. Regulus is the 25th brightest star in the sky and means prince. It has other names: Corleonis, heart of a lion; Rex, which of course means king; Al-Kalb al-Assad, Kabel-Ket. The origin of the name for the constellation where Regulus resides is also of interest to us. And this is a really interesting story, actually. Leo is in fact the Nemean lion from the moon, who was sent by Hera to slay Hercules. Dave, you cannot not talk about the moon.
That's
it's
right.
Impossible. Mm-hmm. As Hercules' first labor, he killed the lion by strangling it with his bare hands. Legend says that the lion had a hide that could not be punctured by iron, bronze or stone, essentially rendering the wearer of that hide impervious to attack. Since he couldn't reason with the ferocious beast, Hercules strangled it to death, and the local people were very grateful. Hercules wore the skin, which made him invincible. Well, invulnerable, really. When Hercules died, the lion was returned to the celestial heavens with Hercules. Did the myths of ancient Greeks originate in China, and the dragon become a lion? The Chaldeans associated Leo with the sun, since it is in the sky during the summer solstice, although this is no longer true due to the precession of the Earth's axis. As you know, the signs are moving.
Of the equinox.
Yeah, correct. Exactly right. So, the star signs move through that. Since Nile floods around this time, the ancient Egyptians worshipped the celestial lion. In fact, we believe, not just us, a lot of researchers believe that the Sphinx is in fact the statue of a lion. And if you look at the size of the body in relation to the recarved, in my opinion, head, you can see anatomically it's completely incorrect. Each representation of the Sphinx, though, interestingly, Dave, that you buy in a museum shop, whatever, is anatomically correct.
That's
so
right.
You would expect the rights, but in fact, it's a tiny little head on a lion's body. Mm-hmm. So, in my opinion, clear evidence that it was recarved, and it was probably the lion of head, and it was in fact facing the constellation of Leo at the time.
The rising constellation.
Bingo. And that was around, guess what? 14 to 15,000 years ago. What? Yeah. That number again? That's just crazy. Now, Leo, to the Egyptians, was the place the sun rose after creation, which was near Dedebola. And so was called Domicilium Solis, the badge of fire and heat, or the house of the sun, really, Domicilium Solis. What secrets will be uncovered by Chinese and Japanese archaeologists? Will the discoveries lead us to the evidence we humans have so longed for? The evidence that ages ago we were not the only intelligent life form on Earth. The search for the identity of the Yellow Emperor goes on. And this was a text by Paul Stonehill, www.dunkelia.com. Fascinating stuff. It really, really is, Dave. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that I wasn't aware of. The Yellow Emperor.
Again?
Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
Again.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff. But what's the next bit we're going to discuss here with our esteemed listenership?
The secret ancient world buried under the vast Taklamakan desert. While most researchers agree on makan being the Persian word for place, etymology of takla is less clear. The word may be is it Uyghur?
Yep.
Borrowing of the Persian tark, to leave alone or leave out, leave behind, relinquish or abandon, plus makan. Another plausible explanation suggests it is derived from Turkey, Turkai, Tagla, Makan, describing the place of ruins. Chinese scholars Gowei and Huang Wenbai linked the name to the Turkarians, a historical people of the Tarim Basin, making the meaning of Takla Makan similar to Tokaristan. In folk etymology, it is said to mean place of no return, more commonly interpreted as once you get in, you'll never get out, or similar. Go ahead, Mackie.
No. Cool.
Ancient people believed that once you entered this place, there was no way out. A very long time ago, there were houses and temples here. Today, everything is buried under the sand. Precious ancient relics are hidden deep under the Sea of Death, or the Taklamakan Desert. Archaeologists are beginning to discover some of the secrets that have been hidden in this mysterious region. Still, it seems that we are only scratching the surface, and only time will tell what more wonders are waiting to be unraveled. The Taklamakan Desert is the largest desert in China, and it is also considered to be the world's second largest shifting sand desert, covering an area of 33,700 square kilometers, or about 13,000 square miles. In Uyghur language, Taklamakan means you get into it, but you can never get out. And that is why the desert is also called the Sea of Death. According to an ancient legend, once a long time ago, a powerful supernatural being who saw the hardship being faced by the people in the area thought that he could help them by using the two magic objects in his possession, namely the golden axe and the golden key.
Yeah, we'll go into that legend at some other point, but it's a fascinating little story. But it gets us to the article that was published in June 2020, so just a month ago. Yep. And this is the secret ancient world buried under the vast Taklamakan Desert. That you have that text, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great, good. So, and this was written by A. Sutherland. Ancient people believed that once you entered it, you couldn't get out. It's really interesting. We're beginning to see some of these. Okay, here we go. It's the largest desert in China, and it's also considered the world's second largest, as Dave has said, shifting sand desert covering the area that Dave just described as well. It is very significant to the people in this region, the desert. According to an ancient legend that we just mentioned, this supernatural being, this powerful supernatural being, had a golden axe and a golden key. He gave this golden axe to the Kazakh people, so they split the mountain Altai and diverted water from the mountains to the fields. Then the supernatural being planned to give the golden key to the Uyghur, so that they could open the door of the treasure house of the Tarim Basin. But unfortunately, his youngest daughter lost the key. This angered him so much that he held her captive in the Tarim Basin, and thus the Taklamakan Desert was formed.
Good parent.
I know. In more modern times, historians learned that the Taklamakan Desert played a vital business role. There are oases located on two routes around the desert that served as important trading spots on the so-called Silk Road. Of all the precious goods crossing this area, silk was perhaps the most remarkable for the people of the West. In 1896, Swedish explorer Sven Hedin made a surprising discovery at the oasis town Dandan Oilik, and that actually means the houses with ivory. Today, an abandoned historic oasis town and Buddhist site in the Taklamakan Desert of China. Several mummies have been found in the Taklamakan Desert. In an interview with English People Daily, Zhang Yuzhong, former deputy director of Xinjiang Archaeology Research Institute, explained that in the past, experts in China and abroad had believed there was no trace of humans in the desert. But Sven Hayden found many remains of houses. Then, Oral Stein, a pioneer of the Silk Road, stayed there for 2 weeks and found the remains of another 18 residential houses and identified some temples. He also found documents from the Tang and Han dynasties. In 1900, Hayden once again visited the Taklamakan Desert. In his expedition, he found the ruins of the ancient city Lulan, buried under the sand, which was the capital of the Lulan kingdom, which dates back even further than Dandan Oilik, the oasis trading post. These two discoveries, Dandan Oilik and Lulan, are signature archaeological events in Xinjiang. In 1910, 10 years after Lulan was found, a local hunter discovered a tomb near a creek 175 kilometers away from Lulan. It was named the Creek Tomb. Built using more than 100 wooden poles erected on a sand dune, the tomb is regarded as one of the most intriguing mysteries in ancient Asian civilization. It belongs to the early Bronze Age, whose history in Xinjiang goes back to 4,000 years ago. Half a century later, in 1979, a female corpse dating back nearly 4,000 years was discovered in Lulan. The corpse was well preserved and nicknamed the Beauty of Lulan. In 1995, ancient brocade, appraised as made in Sichuan province during the Han dynasty, was found at Nia Ruin in the south of the Taklamakan Desert. It became one of the top archaeological finds that year. In 2003, during a dig at the Creek Tomb, another well-kept female corpse was found, also estimated at over 4,000 years old. The corpse still had beautiful facial features, thick eyelashes, and a visible smile. Her beauty once again stunned the world. 24 years after the discovery of Lulan Beauty, a funeral system involving reproduction worship was also revealed. Who inhabited this region and what contact did they have with the European continent? In the late 1980s, several well-preserved mummies were discovered in the Taklamakan Desert. The perfectly well-preserved mummies are estimated to be at least 3,000 years old. The corpses revealed that the people had long, reddish blonde hair, European features, and didn't appear to be ancestors of modern-day Chinese people. Archaeologists now think that they may have been the citizens of an ancient civilization that existed at the crossroads between China and Europe. It would seem an entire secret ancient world is hidden beneath the sand. What more surprising discoveries can be found in this dangerous and mysterious place? And before we go on, the reason this is here, and yes, it's not as ancient as we think it might be. 4,000 years is still a long way away. We have no trace left of this empire or civilization. Mm-hmm. Like, we know nothing about it. It is similar, not as old, but it's similar to Göbekli Tepe, where there it is, but we have no idea who built it. And this civilization here, certainly, if you look at the ethnic description of the people that were part of it, reddish blonde hair, right, in the middle of actually not Central Asia. This is pretty much in China. Where you find these people, and similar to the Ainu people of Japan, which were also a Caucasian appearance. We just don't know, Dave. We have no idea, and this only goes back 4,000 years. So that the point here is, even though this is only really going back 4,000 years, and that's when we had the height of the ancient Greek world. The Roman Empire was not quite yet there. We had Sumerians and Babylonians as well, but we have no record left of this civilization. We have nothing, and that's only 4,000 years ago. Yeah. How much? How little? How much
has
less
been lost?
Yeah.
And the moving sands, Becky, the other moving sand desert also has an entire civilization buried beneath it.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. You go back 10,000 years, 15, 20,000 years, right? All of a sudden, your Oceans of Time. There's this beautiful movie, Dracula. Remember with Anthony Hopkins as Van Helsing, and Dracula there said, I've crossed oceans of time for you. This is what we're looking at here. We're looking at oceans of time, oceans of time, and so vast that we have lost ships. We've lost entire convoys of ships, Dave, in this ocean of time. We have nothing. We don't know anymore.
I wonder how close to the Tartarians they were, and how close to the people in. Where's that desert in South America? In Peru, right?
Nazca.
The other one. No, they're very close. Very close to the mummies. The elongated skulls. That's my.
Pacal?
No.
But everybody knows exactly what we're talking about.
Everyone knows what we're talking about. So they haven't described the skull shape except for their so redheaded, redheaded. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Same era, around about the same time. Maybe the Tartarians were there. Maybe that's who they were. I wonder. It makes me wonder. There's a song in that, ooh, and it makes me wonder. So ancient Hongshan culture, the creators of a pyramid and remarkable artifacts that are still shrouded in mystery.
And you really have to see the pictures here. If you get the chance to go on the YouTube channel or go to the archives, look at the pictures.
Yeah. So what I'll do, I'm just going to pop it on so the audience can see my terrible pronunciations. All right, so the mysterious ancient Hongshan culture vanished thousands of years ago, but they left behind a number of absolutely astonishing jade figurines that we have the privilege to admire today. Interestingly, some of the produced figurines are very alien looking. Whom do they depict? Did the Hongshan people encounter ancient aliens, perhaps? In the Inner Mongolia autonomous region, there is also a very pyramid-shrouded in an aura. There's also a pyramid shrouded in an aura of mystery. A very pyramid. I love that sentence. We'll just write it. We won't spell check it, right? We won't reread it. We won't audit it. Okay, so there is no doubt that the Hongshan culture of ancient China played a vital role in the history of the country. The Hongshan people were dragon and fertility worshippers, as can be seen by looking at the produced artifacts. Several of the jade artifacts were discovered in tombs or near an altar. However, some of the figurines do not resemble any known creature or symbol. Is it true that we have gained a lot of knowledge about the Hongshan people, but much of their spiritual and earthbound life is still shrouded in mystery?
Now, it's actually, I put a few updates and I've sent you the text. I didn't realize that
I didn't have the current one.
No. There you go.
I had the other current one.
There wasn't. I
previously
updates. But look, you got the essence across, and that's good. But what is really interesting about the Hongshan culture is, it is evidence that was found at an early Yangshao culture site here. The Hongshan culture sites also provide the earliest evidence for Feng Shui. The presence of both round and square shapes at Hongshan culture ceremonial centers suggests an early presence of the Gaishan cosmography, round heaven, square earth. Early Feng Shui relied on astronomy to find correlations between humans and the universe. So, again, the reason I'm mentioning this is because there were highly advanced societies in existence, tens of thousands of years ago. Now completely vanished, almost completely vanished. Certainly, only left as myths and legends. But if they truly existed, if they truly were a thing, right? They must have left something. Apart from monuments, apart from buildings we can't explain, etc., language islands, and they did. Feng Shui, I believe, same with acupuncture and other things that came through by the Chinese channel, and certainly some of the Vedic traditions of the Indians, I believe, were passed down from those civilizations. A great understanding, a deep understanding of energy flows that we're only scratching at understanding today, right? Because we look at the world from a very mechanistic point of view, not a holistic, spiritual, or even all-inclusive point of view. Whereas Feng Shui and acupuncture and all that, and in fact, ley lines are just acupuncture for the earth, if you look at it that way, right? That's all it is. And we know ley lines existed, and we know that the ancients all across the world knew about ley lines. Ley lines, acupuncture, feng shui, energy flow, that's all one science. It's even connected to astrology, because it's the energy of the stars that influence you here on Earth, all right? It's a science we only understand rudimentarily. I mean, we can see the effects, and if you come across a great, feng shui practitioner or acupuncturist or even an astrologer, all of a sudden you realize, oh, geez, there's something to this. We just don't know why it works. It works, but we have lost the scientific grounding or understanding or explanation as to why it works. These cultures that went before us, they were probably around for thousands of years, similar to ourselves, right? And probably longer, because I think they got a lot further than we did. And the key thing here is that this knowledge survived in fragmentary form. Some of it came through. And again, feng shui, some of the Vedic systems, the ley lines, and all these energetic flows, all these, the talk that people have about magic as well. These are fragmentary representations of a super science, you can call it if you like, or super technology, far superior to what we have today, it seems. From ancient times. And in fact, it may have been that there were several competing civilizations at the time, right? People talk about the Lemurian, Mu, they talk about Atlantis, they talk about the Indus Valley civilization, right? In the Mahabharata, the other the other Indian epics and Vedic texts. And they were at war with each other. We mentioned this earlier. We had the text that we read out to you. It even sounded a bit like Atlantis, the civilization that was at war with the Harappan cultures and the Indus Valley cultures. Entire cities were destroyed. Entire peoples were eliminated. And is it possible that Atlantis was a continent in the Atlantic? Well, of course it's possible. But I think much more so, Atlantis was similarly maybe to the west. So if the world had come to an end, Dave, in the Cuban Missile Crisis, for argument's sake, right?
That's right.
The two blocks of power that everybody knew about were the East and the West. Right? Now, the West was not a generic place. Sorry, it was not a specific place. It was a generic term describing a power block.
That's right.
Same with the East, right? So people would have remembered the East, the Cold War. They would have remembered terms like the Iron Curtain, things like that.
But contextually, we wouldn't be able to understand what that really meant.
No, exactly.
And we'd be writing stories about a tale of two, warring types, but would have no context.
Correct. And the funny thing is Atlantis, for example, right? There's the Atlas Mountains. There's a whole bunch of. In fact, a lot of the languages across the big drink in the Americas, Atl means water. Atl. Atl means water. Atlantis. Could it be that it wasn't a place necessarily that was being described by Atlantis, but a power that was a naval-based power, for argument's sake, the water people, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And on the other side, you had the mountain people, or whatever, similar to our East and West denomination, or explanations of power struggle. So if our world had come to an end in the 1960s, nuclear war and only a few thousand survivors, etc., they would have remembered East and West, but the words, right? And over time, those words would have lost all meaning, right? And it would just be a word, East, West. And the empire, or they would have called Vostro or Vestra, who knows what kind of thing it would have morphed into. And all it was described was the cardinal points on the compass, East as opposed to West. And so could this have been the water people fighting whoever, Atlantis and Lemuria and Mu?
What's funny, the East and West, when you look at their proximity to each other, are actually the opposites. Because the West is actually east of the... It's
Correct.
east of the East.
Yeah, and you know what the funny thing is?
The East is west of the West.
Yeah, and it only works because it's a Eurocentric view of the world.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So it's east of Europe. It's west of Europe, right? I mean, that's another thing. I mean, who cares in 10,000 years?
Between each other, it would make no sense at all.
No, none, zero, right? And so we have to step away a little and maybe look at this in a broader picture. And look, it might have been that the civilization, or certainly in the future, in the past, they would have been based in Antarctica, I reckon, right? Yeah. And I reckon we would have been we would have been in space. And I also believe the moon was brought into orbit for whatever reason at a certain point, and we still remember that. I know this is going to put us right out there with the crazies and the lollygaggers and whatnot. But stay with me here for a second, because we don't know a lot of stuff. We just say a lot of things, and then we make up theories and hypotheses, and then we claim that to be fact. They're not fact. They're theories, right? We don't know how the moon formed. We don't know why the Earth has the moon the way it does. It's a complete anomaly. We should not have a body like the moon. We shouldn't. And certainly not in exactly the same ratios as it exists. So maybe somebody brought the moon into orbit 50,000 years ago, 40,000 years ago, right? Or whatever. And for a purpose. And when that happened, because it is such a momentous event, on the surface of the Earth, and this is important, all kinds of hell would have broken loose on the surface of the Earth. Not necessarily in the interior. Because if there are floods and rain and whatever, even volcanic activity, wouldn't really bother you too much if you lived on the ocean floor or inside massive caverns inside the Earth. It wouldn't bother you too much, because the culture that you inhabit is probably technologically advanced enough to be earthquake-proof, for example, right? And what would have happened if the moon had come into orbit at that time, it would have dislodged or changed the orbit of smaller objects that might have been going around the Earth. Similar, Mars, for example, has Phobos and Deimos. Maybe the Earth had something similar, and those rocks, let's call them, space rocks, then would have potentially had a decaying orbit, maybe a rapidly decaying orbit, and would have hit the Earth in the southern Indian Ocean, as we will have it, and that could have brought about the end of the last ice age, for example. I'm just spitballing here, right? But we dismiss it all, Dave, and I think that's wrong, because there's clear evidence, as plain as the nose in your face, that the story that we've been told about our history is complete nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. And we keep finding things all the time. And like you and I have said from the start of the show 10 years ago, almost 11 years.
It's going to say it here, it's going to say it right now.
The more we know, the more we learn, the further in time human beings will be pushed. And civilizations will be pushed. And it has happened.
It's happening every single year.
Right? That was before Göbekli Tepe. That was before these other finds. That was before, there's some
that's
3 or 4...
Becky.
Yeah, clearly. and not only that, Neanderthal wasn't our ancestor. No, we cohabited
That's right.
the world with them. We interbred with them. That means they're the same species. You can't interbreed with something that's not your species. It's simple genetics. And there are 4 or 5 or more others.
Consuming a couple of, rotten fruit, and they're going to look great.
I know, right? But that's the
Lonely
point
nights, Neanderthal.
Blue skin. Blue skin is actually a thing. People have blue skins on this planet. It's a genetic disorder, they call it. But blue skin is a thing. Red skin is a thing.
I think that is a, what's it called? Throwback, yeah?
Yeah.
When it genetically reappears again.
Yeah. It is fascinating. If
Indian culture's
take the
gods
time.
had blue skin.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Oh no, that's not right. That can't be right. But it is, guys and girls, of course.
Is it Indonesian as well, Mackie?
Yeah, absolutely. Very similar as well.
Yes.
In fact, it's a lot of cultural bleed. But we have to realize just that these pieces of evidence are all around us, but they're being misrepresented. And the funny thing is this, right? There's this large pyramid that was discovered in Indonesia, and the oldest. It's like 4 layers of it, and all built up on each other. Covers 150,000 square meters. It's a massive area, right? And the oldest layer goes back to about 28,000 years ago. 28,000 years ago. And the article it's a mainstream article, and it says, it is speculated that the site had religious significance. Because
it's always religious, a temple or a shrine or something.
Yeah, because people are praying there today. So let's forget it for a second that in the intervening 28,000 years, it's highly unlikely there was a cultural link that connected the original.
Continuously prayed about. Yeah,
highly unlikely, but no, it was definitely a religious thing because people are praying there today. It's astounding that we would make these statements.
That's a go-to assumption, Mickey. It's some temple. That's what it was. It's like a grain silo. Well, wasn't a grain silo. It was a temple.
I know.
Religious sacrifices were going on.
It really is crazy. But Dave, why don't you go ahead and you've got the text now? I think
Yes,
the mysterious figures of the Hongshan culture. This is an article from 2019, very recent as well. So this is really, really interesting.
Oh, hang on. Where's that now?
Okay, this is on the new page 80.
Page 80. All right, hang on a second.
Yeah. The mysterious figures of the
that means
Hongshan
we're skipping
culture.
stuff, right?
No. You did that. You did all that.
No.
You did it all.
No.
Yes, you did. You did.
Hang on a second. It's not Mohenjo-Daro.
No, too far.
Mysterious Great Pyramid of China is
No.
before that.
The mysterious figures. Yes, before that, Dave. A little bit before that. Mysterious figures of the Hongshan culture.
I opened up the document you sent me, and I'm looking at it. I'll try again.
I'll start.
All right, yes, please do.
Okay, so before the invention of photography and cinema, and this is what happens in a live show, rather than the press, to witness an event, one had to resort to painting, sculpture, and oral stories, of course. Perhaps this is why when we look at the archaeological finds of ancient disappeared civilizations, we discover artifacts that seem to represent alien beings, of which we find no trace in the official history. And you really have to see those jade figurines of the Hongshan culture. We'll put them up in the YouTube clip. Artifacts, and they do seem alien. Take the figurines of the Hongshan culture, for example. A Neolithic civilization that flourished in the northeast of China between 4,700 and 2,900 BC. So they stopped existing 5,000 years before the present. Okay, that's how long that goes away. It is particularly known for its jade artifacts and for its burial sites and worship, which comprise temples, altars, stone figures, and pyramidal constructions. Hongshan craftsmen began to dig and work jade, creating incredible objects, some of which cannot be reproduced even with modern techniques. How they were able to create them is an interesting first unanswered question. The jade figures of Hongshan. According to archaeologists, the Hongshan civilization considered jade a sacred stone. In fact, many artifacts and statuettes were discovered inside tombs. Among them, there are some very strange ones that represent incomprehensible creatures. If we observe them closely, we notice that they are not similar to any living creature known on our planet. For official signs, these figures represent mythological creatures. Of course they do. As the Uroboro, a dragon that bites the tail, represented in the form of a swine-headed dragon called Dragon Pig. Let me just.
I think I found.
Let me just.
I think I found the problem.
No, you have. Here we go. That should be it. There we go. Beautiful.
It's a version of the issue, people.
This is version 4 now. Now, but bear in mind, to this day, the Chinese believe that jade is imbued with a very specific power to this day. So this started, well, really 7,000 years ago, this whole jade thing, maybe longer ago. And again, it's about energies. The Chinese believe that these jade stones, other gemstones as well, but especially jade, has this amazing energy or ability to channel energy for you, even as a protective kind of a totem, if you will, if you wear it. So the Chinese still to this day prize jade very, very highly, and a lot of Chinese, not just Chinese but others as well, wear jade jewelry on their skin. So because they believe this is a healing property it has as well. Now there's the theory of the dragon pig. Not everyone is convinced. To many people, in fact, the figures of Hongshan appear to represent alien beings, as if to witness an ancient contact that could not have been handed down from generation to generation in any other way, if not orally, as a myth or legend. But see, if you saw these pictures, and it's really quite astounding. I mean, it's like a long, elongated head. In fact, the skull is sort of reminiscent of the elongated skulls that we find all over the world, Dave.
Hit send and I can bring them up.
Oh, that's probably a good idea. And they certainly, but not only the craftsmanship is also exquisite. It is smoothly polished jade, very small figurines. I mean, it's not an easy stone to work with either. Anyway, it seems unlikely that the Hongshan craftsmen could reproduce what they had never seen in their lives in such a detailed way. The hypothesis of the dragon, of which the Chinese legends begin to speak all at the time, does not hold up if we compare the figures of Hongshan with any other representations of successive dragons. So what that means is, I mean, of course, the Chinese culture and all the dynasties are replete with images of dragons. We all know that, what the Eastern dragons look like. In fact, the funny thing is, in the East, dragons were always a symbol of good luck. In the West, quite the opposite. Interestingly, right? So there's an East-West dichotomy when it comes to dragons. But the point is that none of the representations of dragons that have then followed the Hongshan culture look anything like the dragon pig, or the what is meant to be a dragon pig in the Hongshan culture. It just doesn't. It just doesn't look anything like it. Okay, so, well, is this then a symbolism, or is it maybe testimony of ancient contact? It is not that the symbolism of the Hongshan culture and of many other disappeared civilizations, it is just a convenient excuse that official science uses whenever it faces something that it fails to explain, or worse, it contradicts the theories that are considered valid up until now, or then, I should say. So we've seen this. It's bias, right? You find a couple of bones, you say, okay, here's Lucy, first ancestor of human beings 6 million years ago, blah, blah, blah. There are competing theories. There are competing theories all over the place, but they're being discarded because they don't align with the established theory, a theory that people have built their careers upon. And, scientists will tell me, and other of my friends as well, there's no such thing as bias or dogma or academic favoritism. Yeah, tell this to Elizabeth Steen McIntyre, all right? A very successful archaeologist, a groundbreaking pioneer in her work, and then reduced to being a florist. Well, the reduced is probably the wrong word. I shouldn't say that, because a florist is a noble profession. Yeah. But her academic career was over, and her crime wasn't even that grave. I mean, she was out by a few thousand, maybe 10,000 years when she was dating something, but it didn't fit the general trend or the general belief at the time. It still doesn't. Having said that, her findings have been validated or revalidated twice independently. So she was correct, but it was not credited, right? And still it isn't. Now, if in the future evidence of an ancient alien contact should emerge, many symbolic figures found all over the world could take on a very different meaning. Until then, everyone can at least be fascinated by artifacts that testify to the skill achieved by civilizations that have disappeared for millennia. I want to repeat this again, and we mentioned this before in the stoneworking. We have not equaled some of the stoneworking expertise that we see in artifacts and sites thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. 8,000, 10,000, 15,000. We have not equaled it. We cannot make it today. They did something better than we are doing it today. And just because it's stone, we shouldn't look down our nose upon them, because we still work in stone. We still have stone masons. We still have stone implements. If you've got a mortar and pestle, you might have it on stone, right? We still work in stone. We just find it more convenient to work in metal and plastic these days. But it's not as durable, if you will, unless it's stainless, right?
After the Ice Age again.
Well, that's it. Whereas stone artifacts will be obsidian, jade, granite. I don't care. Anyway, Dave, tell us about the mysterious pyramid.
The Great Pyramid of China? Almost totally unknown even to most Chinese. It is located about 40 miles southwest of Shan, the largest of 16 pyramids located in the area designated as the Shenzi, or the no-go area, or a forbidden zone by the communist authorities. And you've argued communists shouldn't be really there anyway. So. Okay. These restrictions make it extremely difficult for Westerners to visit the pyramid and take photographs of it. Nevertheless, some people from West, or the West, have actually managed to find a way to view this impressive structure. It is unknown when exactly the Great Pyramid of China was raised. According to some Chinese archaeologists, the pyramid was built during the... Can you pronounce that one for me just the once?
Xia
dynasty from 2205 to 1767 BC. Ancient records preserved in an old monastery near the Mongolian border describe the Shan pyramid. The structure was said to measure 1,000 feet in height, which made it the highest pyramid in the world. The Great Pyramid of Egypt is only 450 feet in height. According to the monastic documents, the pyramid was already extremely old when the records were made. Who were the mysterious Chinese pyramid builders? Were they members of an ancient Atlantean civilization, or were they perhaps giants of the past, or maybe even extraterrestrials? Now, Mackie, remember we found them when Google Earth came out. We found a string of pyramids in China.
Right. In fact, I went to Xi'an some years ago, and we get special treatment. And don't ask me why. My brother-in-law was friends with the guy that's married to the governor of Xi'an. It was fascinating. We were driven to the. If you've ever been to Xi'an, there's a huge car park, and you have to go and park your car, then you walk through the gate. No. We were driven through the gate right to the steps of the museum, and had our own translator, which was fantastic. But even being as well connected as I was then, completely by coincidence, they still wouldn't take me to the pyramid. They said, "Oh no, it's not open to the public yet." And it's not. I went down, looked at the. This is actually where the terracotta army is, right? So we went into the area there. We looked, and it was fascinating stuff. And these statues, by the way, were painted, and they looked so lifelike. Some of them that still have the paint on. It's astounding. But they would not take us.
And they're all different too, aren't they?
Oh, every single one is an individual.
Yeah.
It was absolutely they're complete individuals. But yeah, so they wouldn't take us there. They would not take us there, and it's really fascinating. It was really a couple of Germans, Friedrich Fettmeyer Schroeder and Oskar Marmen, I think, back in the early teens, 1912, 1913, that brought it to the attention of the West. And it was called the White Pyramid back then, and we still don't really know. It's massive, right? It's 1,000 feet. It's 300 meters high. Now it's actually a lot. Flatter, so that the angle is a lot less acute on the pyramid, so it covers a much larger area. But we still don't know. And apparently, there's meant to be not a lake, but it's maybe a lake. You can call it, like, of mercury under it as well.
Yep, that's right.
It is something we just don't.
I saw a full documentary on that.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And there was something else that China, in an effort to maintain their secrecy, has been covering them in soil and plants and trees, trying to disguise them. But they've already been found. All of them have been found, and the lidar doesn't lie. The lidar doesn't lie.
Yeah, that's right. So, and again, it was also meant to be a burial complex. I mean, who knows? But it certainly hasn't been. It hasn't been explored enough.
But still, the question is, who built it and when were they built? Don't know.
No. I mean, it's attributed to the Emperor Wu of Han, which was about roughly 2,000 years ago. But again, just like ancient.
The Egyptian pyramids.
Yeah, exactly. They're attributed to these people, right? But there's no hard evidence that actually makes the connection. So
make another one. I'll wait for you.
Make another one. That's
right. We forgot.
No. We did?
We forgot how to make them. Sure you
did. Sorry.
That's where I was going.
You're right. But that's the thing. You're right, though. I mean, I put it out there, and that's one of our little projects that we have planned here to engage an engineering company or even a contractor to figure out how much it would cost to build something like that today and how they would do it. I want to, when I get the time and money, I want to engage, just as consultancy, engineers to build the Temple of Baalbay. That's one. and then also the pyramids. Those two. And then also I would like to understand how they would have built Machu Picchu. I mean, the construction itself would have been fairly simple. Getting the stuff there.
There isn't a heavy lift, helicopter that can lift the stones.
Bingo. But
to get them there.
The thing is, I want them to explain to me how they would do it without modern machinery. That's what I want to know.
Have you seen the tracks?
Yeah.
Have you seen it? The track is for goats.
Yes, and very nimble ones at that.
I've seen some photographs. My friends have been, and they've showed me photographs. So they're sitting on the stairs looking down, and it's almost a completely vertical drop. And they're meant to get, 8,000 ton stones up this staircase. Forget it. There's no other access. That's the access.
So it stands to reason. Again, because in South America we see evidence of being able to see something from a height, that they had flight. Was it powered flight? I don't know. But certainly the Nazca lines. Yeah, not just the Nazca lines. So there's some other artifacts that can only be seen from the air. Right? And you look at Machu Picchu, how would you build it if you didn't have an air crane or something that lifts somehow? How would you do it? Oh, we built it with love. Love built it.
Yes, this is the house the love built. So Nazca, they actually sheared a whole mountaintop off.
Yeah.
To build it, and that's always ignored.
Yeah.
In the argument. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a natural plateau. Oh, okay.
Sure it is. Everywhere else around for 100 miles is all, conical shaped mountaintops, except for this one. Yeah,
so it makes perfect sense to me, I have to say.
All right, I'm done. I'm good. Sure.
Yeah.
You made it, right? Okay.
It's nuts. Look, I think we can get to Mohenjo-Daro, and then next week, we're going to talk about something that's fascinating, the installation. But there's a special case here again. So this was a special case. And this is the Mohenjo-Daro special case. We did some more digging, and we came across this detailed description. It's actually from Phil Coppens. Yes. And there's one intriguing aspect to Mohenjo-Daro that sets it apart from most ancient sites. It is the one anomaly among several at the site that has caused some researchers to suggest that there might have been forces unleashed in the past that are comparable to modern weapons. Walls, pottery, and other items found in the city have been turned into a kind of ceramic glass, indicating that they were exposed to heat close to 1500 degrees Celsius. Evidence of ionizing radiation has also been found in some of the burial sites. Archaeologist Francis Taylor stated that the etchings in some nearby temples, he translated, suggested that they prayed to be spared from the great light that was coming to lay ruin to the city. It's so mind-boggling to imagine that some civilizations had nuclear technology before we did. The radioactive ash adds credibility to the ancient Indians' records that describe atomic warfare. Now, it may not be exactly the same tech that we have today, everybody, right? Again, technology will be different, and different energy sources might have been used that might have had the same effect and potentially the same kind of energetic release and radiation, but it might not necessarily have been nuclear.
Real quick, Mackie, today we've refined the nuclear weapon down so much so that it requires almost no initial blast. Yeah, and the payload is so much smaller, but the effect is much better. So thinking about what there could be and couldn't be, and how you can, where we're going to be another, 30, 50 years with the device, it says a lot to this thousands and thousands of years ago, what they might have had.
Completely. Absolutely. And this is really, it's mind-boggling, as was stated here, because we just don't know. Furthermore, when excavations of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro reached the street level, they discovered skeletons scattered about the cities, many holding hands and sprawling in the streets, as if some instant horrible doom had killed its inhabitants. People were just lying unburied in the streets of the city. There seemed to be no one available to bury them afterwards. What could cause such a thing? Right? Why didn't the bodies get eaten? Or why didn't they decay, and scattered by animals? Well, that's it. There's also no apparent cause of a physical violent death. Furthermore, Alexander Grobowski, in Riddles of Ancient History, published in 1966, reported the discovery of at least one human skeleton in this area with a level of radioactivity approximately 50 times greater than it should have been due to natural radiation. Furthermore, thousands of fused lumps, crystalline black stones, have been found at Mohenjo-Daro. These appear to be fragments of clay vessels that melt together in extreme heat. And we know that all over the world we see extreme heat evidence on walls and buildings, going from the British Isles right through Europe and into Asia, and even North Africa. Another curious sign of an ancient nuclear or energetic war in India is a giant crater near Mumbai, formerly Bombay. This nearly circular 2,154 meter diameter lunar crater, located 400 kilometers northeast of Mumbai and dated at less than 50,000 years old, could be related to nuclear warfare of antiquity. No trace of any meteoric material, etc., has been found at the site or in the vicinity, and this is the world's only known impact crater in basalt. Indications of great shock from a pressure exceeding 600,000 atmospheres and intense abrupt heat indicated by basalt glass spherules can be ascertained from the site. I've seen a picture, and it looks like a round hole. It's 2 kilometers worth of round hole, mind you, but it's there, right? You can Google it yourself and look at it. And yeah, there are other interesting facts about it, like the sphere, the basalt glass spherules as well, because 600,000 atmosphere, that's serious pressure. I just want to make sure you can form diamonds under that pressure if you get enough heat as well, right? So it's certainly odd. And yeah, there's a satellite image, Dave. You can look at it. It is an almost circular crater, and it's huge, massive.
Yeah, I've got a picture up on the screen at the moment, so the YouTubers can have a look. My goodness me. Yeah.
Now, I don't think we've got much more time for many other things, but the key thing here is, and this is really all we're trying to do here, is raise awareness, and that the world is a lot more mysterious than people give it credit for. And we don't have to make up any of this. We don't have to stretch the truth at all. You can look at it yourself. You can do your own research and find out all the pertinent facts. And you can go ahead and accept the official explanation. That's cool. You can, right? Does it satisfy you? Does it answer all the questions that are raised by these mysterious artifacts or stories, or even remains in some instances, like the mummies or the elongated skulls, or all these other weird things that are part of our history and that we simply have no explanation for? That civilization and what we've been taught, or certainly I in history back in Germany when I was a wee little lad, was that history moves linear and civilization is on an upward trajectory. Starting from the Stone Age, where we banged 2 rocks together, up today, we're flying out into the stratosphere and into the moon and the Mars, and we're colonizing, the Alpha Centauri system. That's complete nonsense. We know, even if you look at recent history, we know that history is cyclical. Everything goes through cycles. Empires rise and fall, right? Civilizations rise and fall. We're finding evidence of civilizations we had no idea existed, and we still don't know who they are. We don't know how they accomplished what they did or why they did what they did. We don't know. It's easy though to take the lazy route and attribute it to a known civilization. And my favorite example here is the Jupiter Temple in Baalbay. We know the Jupiter Temple was built by the Romans. Why it was built there, of all places, is a complete mystery. It's like in the middle of nowhere. It's like Bumtown nowhere, right? That's where it is, even in the terms of the Roman Empire. But they built it there, and I believe they built it because there was this massive platform available, right? With these massive, massive stone blocks, the biggest that have ever been quarried and used in constructions on the planet that we know of. 1,000-ton stones. They are there in the platform. And if I was a Roman person of the time, and go, this is a great little platform, I'm going to build my temple on it. And they built this massive Jupiter temple on it, not from a single rocks, if you will, but these were all put together, poured concrete, etc., etc. So they used completely different building techniques to the platform. And it's a very impressive temple, don't get me wrong, it's huge. But what's more impressive is the platform itself on which it was built, and which is clearly a lot older. You just have to look at the weathering of the stone to see there were 3 distinct building periods at the temple. Because for love or money, you cannot age stone like that. I mean, unless you got 1,000 people chiseling away to make it look old. Come on, man, make it look old. Why? I don't know. It's same with the Sphinx, Dave. Okay, we know that the Sphinx is very, very old, because the kind of weathering the stone underwent can only be explained by precipitation, rain, not flooding, but rain. So weather erosion, right? And every geologist, and Robert Schoch was the first to really notice this. He went to his geologist friends. He's a Harvard geologist, and they said, so he showed a little section of the Sphinx, not identifying it, just a little section of the rock. What do you think weathered this stone? And to a man and a woman, they said, oh, this is definitely rain erosion, clearly, because you can see it because of this and that and the other, rivulets. And he goes, oh, thank you. Then he showed him the bigger picture, and he goes, oh, okay, sorry, Robert, please don't mention my name when you talk to other people about this. Because it's so far out there, nobody wanted to risk their careers or put their name on the line. But it's clear as day. This is hard science. Geology is hard science, right? This is not, trying to piece something together from myths and just fragmentary evidence. This is like, it's a rock, and when you put rock in water, this is what happens. That's just physics. It's just very simple, a hard science thing, but completely disregarded. And I watched the debate between Mark Lehner and Robert Schoch and Zahi Hawass, and it was a farce. They said, okay, well then show me where the corroborating evidence for civilization that old is. Show. Where is it? Where are the pottery shards? There, it's the Sphinx. It's the Sphinx. It's in your face. So, have a great evening, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Stay tuned for Jade and his great show. Call up and be a part of it. It's great. We'll see you next week for show number 437. And thanks to all the other hosts. Thanks for the station. Thanks for listening. Take care.